This was a new course for this year, and I was really excited for it because after pre-riding it, it seemed to really suit me as a rider. It was flat, and the laps were pretty short. This was a later race in the series, and a few riders had shown up to the race that hadn't raced yet, so there were quite a few fresh legs as well. The backside of the course didn't offer a lot of space to move up, and so you really had to jockey for position after turn 2 and 4, which were really the only places that you could put in a bit of an effort to make up spots. These last 2 corners were probably my favorite 2 of the course. They weren't particularly challenging, but you could carry a lot of speed into and out of them if you hit it right. Pretty early into the race, there was some fast pacing going on, and you can see that riders are starting to open up gaps early. Part of this was because some of the riders had been doing the whole series, so their fatigue was starting to set in. But the other part was that if you weren't right up front this race, you were constantly standing up out of the corners, which can really take a toll on you over the course of an entire race. With the pace slowing down and the group starting to bunch up a bit here, I use this as an opportunity to follow my buddy Dom up the right side and make up some spots in the field. It ends up working out pretty well, and through the next few corners I'm able to recover from the effort by sitting in the middle of the field and not having to sprint out of every corner. Here, I'm sure during the race it was a lot harder than it looks on the screen, but I noticed through this section I leave some pretty big gaps in front of me through these 2 corners, and when I could have been using that space to make up some spots and have to work less hard. I'm glad that I noticed it so that now I can be aware of this in the future, not just for this race, but for any race. At this point in the race, there are a few riders just off the front, and the field is actually trying to bring them back. Unfortunately, as is so often the case, once the rider on the front pulls off, the next rider doesn't really want to waste any energy because they also want to finish well. So the gap slowly but surely begins to grow larger. Out of the last corner, the rider next to me and myself get gapped a little bit. I know it's going to hurt to close that gap, so I just sit on the draft and wait for this other rider in front of me and let him do the majority of the work, so that I get a free ride back to the peloton. Tired of being slowed down through each corner, I decide to take this opportunity again to move up through the field. As I do, another rider jumps off and attacks. Luckily, I had left a rider in front of me, and him and one more rider do some work to chase that attack down. They put in solid efforts through the first few corners, and I'm able to just follow their move and stay in the draft so that I don't burn any of my matches chasing that move. A little bit later, Daniel from ABD starts to ride away from the group, and I let him go. More because I'm tired than anything else. He is a friend, but also it ends up being a pretty solid move, and no one else is quick to follow him, and he does get a bit of a gap. Few riders from further back see that Daniel has escaped off the front and put in an attack to try and see if they can get away as well. The riders on the front, including myself, see that and start to follow. You can see that I'm letting a little bit of a gap open up, and again, it really isn't on purpose, but more because I'm pretty tired, and I really just am trying to save some energy. The group comes back together, and the riders that had attacked are now stuck on the front, pulling the rest of us around. I'm finally able to catch some recovery and just sit in. With about 3 laps to go, another friend of mine, Jeffrey, goes off the front with a great move. He gets away out of this first corner, and he's going to try and hold it for those last 3 laps. With the 3 riders up the road, he's only racing for 4th, but it's a solid move, and if he's able to stay away, he'll get a pretty good result. 2 laps to go, and I know that I need to move up in the group. Jeffrey is still up the road, and so is the initial breakaway. I know that any more moves that are going to happen are going to come from further up, so I'm quick to move up onto those wheels. I've spent enough time recovering the past few laps, and I feel like I have at least a little bit left in my legs at this point. As we come onto the finishing straight for our last lap, my buddy Dom again pulls the perfect Dom move, and comes roaring up the right-hand side while everyone on the front is playing games and getting ready for the last lap. Nobody was ready for it, and no one can follow it. I began to get swarmed, and I realized that I really need to fight to keep and make up those positions that I just lost. On every straightaway I can, I'm putting in little digs to make it back up through the group. I finally make it to the front, and you can see that Dom is right there, and we've almost got him, but it doesn't look like it's going to happen. As we come into the last few corners, the rider in front of me sits up slightly, and out of the last corner, I was really expecting him to jump. He didn't, and so I was left either waiting for him to jump again, or choosing to go myself. My hesitation causes me to miss the jump from behind me, and I have to chase those two riders that come around us. I was able to put in a respectable sprint and end up taking 10th on the day. It's not the best result, but just barely a top 10 against some really strong riders, and after a couple days of racing, I was feeling pretty good about it. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to hit the like button, and if you want new videos every week, go ahead and click subscribe.